Hi guys, Dr. Ben here. So wanted to make a video. I was inspired by a Neil deGrasse Tyson video about how science is under attack. I definitely agree with Dr. Tyson. Science is under attack in the 21st century. Maybe not necessarily in the ways that he thinks, but I'll express my own opinions on this. And so just to let you guys know where I stand on four key issues. So the four issues he sort of hinted at in the video were climate change, evolution, GMOs, and vaccines. And so I agree with Dr. Tyson on a lot of stuff, but not everything. So I wanted to go over that and basically let you guys know where I stand. So topic number one is climate change. Total in agreement with Dr. Tyson. Climate change is very real. We're seeing the effects of it. Just had a 4.4 earthquake here in Northern California a few days ago. 2 wildfires this past year, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. Really bad. It's definitely affecting me where I live, and I know it's affecting a lot of the planet, and science predicts that it's just going to get worse. Of course, now there is in the political arena, there's the right wing and the president who are saying, no, climate change is a hoax. It's perpetuated by the media to make us uncompetitive with China. They have a bunch of coal-fired power plants and exploit workers and pollute like hell, and they're getting ahead. And so, of course, there's going to be interest from big oil and big ag and all these companies that pollute and their industry destroys the environment, that they want to take their big money and try to basically hush the scientists who are showing that what they're doing is essentially destroying the planet. So when you have big money interests like this that are making a killing but as a side effect are polluting the planet, they're going to spend their big money to cover it up so you don't know. So industry definitely has a huge role here in trying to suppress information that climate change either doesn't exist or it's not nearly as bad as it is. So it comes down to who are you going to believe? Big oil with tons of money who doesn't want you to know the truth, or scientists who are well-meaning and working for the greater good? I think it's pretty obvious. Second issue, evolution. In case you didn't know, I believe in evolution. That's even an absurd thing to say because it's a theory. It's pretty much the most widely accepted theory. 99% of scientists agree that evolution is real. Of course, there's the pushback again from the right wing in terms of, no, the Bible is real. The Earth is really only 5,700 years old, or whatever absurdity that is. Obviously not. And then there's this, we're actually aliens, and okay, like the fossil record is pretty clear on things. We don't know everything. Yes, there are some missing links, and we don't know exactly how we got from Australopithecus to Homo sapiens sapiens, but I mean, the puzzle fits together, okay? Evolution is definitely real, and look who's naysaying. It's essentially people with religious ideas that are based on essentially faith and very little or to no evidence to show that evolution isn't real. And if you know me, I prescribe a fruit-based, plant-based diet for my patients and people who watch this channel. So I definitely agree with evolution. We have the physiology of the great apes, the chimpanzees, the bonobos, and our ancestors. We were meant to thrive on a diet based on fruits and leafy green vegetables. Neil deGrasse Tyson is still posting things about how cows are machines that turn grass into steak or whatever. Like, Dr. Tyson, if you really believe in evolution, you would advise people to eat a plant-based diet, a fruit-based diet as well. So that is one charge to you, Dr. Tyson. If you really believe in evolution, you would condone eating a diet based on what our evolutionary ancestors ate, because as we know, the time it takes to change gut physiology, all the physiology of what we eat and how we eat, that takes millions of years, and it's only been a few 100,000 since we split off from our ancestors in the fossil record. So we're still eating the same thing. Next up, we'll get into these GMOs. Well, the science is under attack. That people think GMOs are bad. And I gotta say, I am not pro-GMO. I'll just come right out and say it. I think, oh, we're gonna feed the world. Well, the data doesn't really basically shows that after a 5-year or so period, the yield from GMOs levels off. You don't gain that much advantage. And but there are no long-term safety studies. So I am not a fan of GMOs. I have nothing against genetically modifying anything if there is a need, but that doesn't necessarily, just because it was done by scientists, make it safe. And so we have this giant agro company, Monsanto, which is really a chemical company. They came up with Agent Orange, which most of you are too probably young to remember that, but we used it to basically kill all the trees in Vietnam to try to, basically smoke the Viet Cong out of their holes. Well, and then all these people came back from the Vietnam War with poisoning and cancers due to Agent Orange. So this is the company that we're going to let spray, chemicals on our food and say, oh, it'll up the yield, and it's genetic modification. And so they try to play this card of like, well, if you don't believe in it, you must be some right-wing Christian nut who thinks that humans shouldn't play God. I have nothing wrong with genetic modification. Just think in the case that we do it, first of all, why do we need to up the crop yields of corn, wheat, and soy? I really don't advise eating those foods. We feed them mostly to cattle. And we could get way better yields if we just grew fruits and vegetables. They yield so many more calories per acre. And if you believe in climate change, like we talked about, you would know that animal agriculture is the #1 cause of climate change, the #1 cause. So if we're growing all this GMO corn, wheat, and soy to feed to animals, we're just ruining the environment. Like it totally, so do you believe in science or not? Because if you believed in climate change, you would have known that a plant-based diet would have been the best idea, and you wouldn't have had to grow all this GMO corn, wheat, and soy. What's it called? Glyphosate, Roundup, the pesticide that they spray on the GMO wheat, was originally classified as a Group 1 carcinogen by the World Health Organization. After lobbying, they dropped it down to a Group 2, which means it probably causes cancer. Group 1 definitely causes cancer. And we're just spray that all on the food and say, oh, well, it's not really enough to cause cancer. Well, we don't have the long-term safety studies to really know whether it does or it doesn't. So it's really hard to assert that point. Then you have the Bt toxin, which you splice into corn, that it produces more of this Bt toxin, which essentially causes bugs' stomachs to explode. And in the last 25 years since GMOs have been out, well, the GMOs have been out like 22 years, 1996, we've seen an explosion in the amount of IBS, IBD, and gut-related autoimmune diseases. So leaky gut, intestinal permeability is an all-time high, and this Bt toxin, which punches holes in the stomachs of bugs, oh, well, it's definitely not doing it to humans. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, like, it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to like see the correlation. Not that we necessarily have cause, but we don't have data to show that it's safe either. So I'm not a fan of GMOs. We don't need them to feed the world. We just need to grow primarily fruits, vegetables, potatoes, rice, stuff like that. And we'll have plenty of food, okay? We'll have plenty of food. Animal agriculture is the big problem. So if you want to feed the world and you're concerned about climate change, you would want farmers to grow fruits, vegetables, potatoes, grains, stuff like that, okay? And wouldn't need to spray them with tons of pesticides, because we could make plenty of food and still grow it all organically. Last subject, vaccines. Oh, people are anti-science and don't believe in vaccines. And now this is another thing that you're basically, labeled a right-wing, non-science believing nut job if you don't believe in vaccines. Well, here's my stance on vaccines. I am not anti-vaccine. I think that's a slur. That's like calling somebody pro-abortion. I am pro-vaccine safety. And let me tell you, I used to be pro-vaccine until I met enough people who've been harmed by them that I started to question. People who said, oh, after I got the shot, I had I ended up developing frozen shoulder in my arm here where the shot happened, and I thought, that's funny. So these are people who'd been, essentially laughed off by the medical community, who came to me for help because no one would listen to them. And so after doing my research, I really found that the safety data on vaccines is terrible, okay? So for pharmaceutical drugs like, an opioid or a Viagra, you have to go through these clinical trials which are like, extremely rigorous, okay, for pharmaceutical drugs. Vaccines are not classified as a pharmaceutical. They are classified as a biologic, which means they don't need to go through nearly the amount of safety testing. In fact, what is the most disturbing to me is that they don't even test the vaccines against a true placebo. So if you have something like a flu vaccine, you put a flu virus in there, you add an adjuvant. In the instance of the flu vaccine, it's thimerosal, which is mercury. You can look it up on the CDC website if you don't believe me. Mercury is in the vaccine. And so when they test against their placebo, there's still mercury in their placebo. So we don't really know. We don't know. How do we know that the mercury is not causing problems? Well, we don't have a true placebo to test it against, so how do we even know? Furthermore, what's really disturbing is that this the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Act, which was enacted in 1986, which essentially granted drug manufacturers legal immunity from any damages caused by a vaccine. So if you believe you're harmed by a vaccine, and don't tell me that people never get harmed by vaccines, because if pharmaceutical drugs, which are tested to higher standards, are killing 50,000 plus people a year, and then these drugs that aren't tested to the same standards and given to practically everybody are definitely harming people. And so the government essentially granted them immunity where you cannot sue a vaccine manufacturer for damages. You have to sue the US government. This is unprecedented. There's only one other industry in the entire country that gets legal immunity that can harm you, and you can't sue them. And you know what that industry is? It's McDonald's and the fast food industry. There's something called cheeseburger laws, which say that if you develop obesity or heart attack or diabetes from eating too much fast food, you can't sue the fast food company. Well, the same thing goes. If you develop a neurological disorder, you get sick, you have autism from a vaccine, you can't sue the manufacturer. You got to sue the US government, i.e. the taxpayer, i.e. you and I. So based on that, I think vaccines are extremely unsafe. I think that because the manufacturers don't have liability, they don't need to make them safe. We're not testing them to the same standards as pharmaceutical drugs. That's why there's over 300 in the pipeline, because these companies know that they can make a ton of money because the drug has to be given to everybody. They don't really have to rigorously safety test, and they have no liability if the drug harms anybody. So of course there's going to be a push for more and more vaccines and make them mandatory because it's a cash cow. I have nothing against vaccines per se, but I just don't think we have the data to show that they're safe. So I think that any individual vaccine you're considering getting for you or your child, you should research it very thoroughly. And ultimately, we need more testing, we need better safety standards, and we need to hold these pharmaceutical companies liable. So anyway, that is my take on these 4 issues. I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Give this video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll catch you guys next video. Thanks for watching.